I said it at the top of the show, the concentration of talent in the SEC and Big Ten really just keeps on growing. You're looking specifically, though, at the quarterbacks. I mean, between developed high school recruits, big pickups in the transfer portal, which conference has the best and most elite quarterback play? Thankfully, our friend Brad Crawford did the hard work of ranking each of them by conference. But we're going to welcome him on the show, and we're going to make it even more challenging because as if ranking quarterbacks in the spring by conference is not challenging enough, Brad, we're actually going to have them go head-to-head and have you pick the number one versus number one, number two versus number two. I told my producer that's reminded me of a tennis tournament when you have the number ones go against each other. But we are playing football here, and let's start with the number one quarterback in the SEC, that is Georgia's Carson Beck, against the number one quarterback in the Big Ten, Oregon's Dillon Gabriel. Who are you taking?
If we were talking 2025 NFL draft, I'm going Carson Beck. I believe he'll be a better pro. However, 2024 college football season, Dillon Gabriel, 120 career touchdown passes. He's had 4 seasons as a starting quarterback with over 3,100 yards passing. And by the way, he's a plug-and-play player in this Will Stein offense at Oregon. I think he's a 40-touchdown guy this season. I've got Oregon in my top 5 preseason. So right now, statistically relevant, I'm probably going Dillon Gabriel over Carson Beck. But that's no disrespect to Carson Beck. He's the best quarterback in the SEC. He's going to have a great final season at Georgia because he's going to be a top 5 pick. But Dillon Gabriel versus Carson Beck, I'm going Gabriel. I mean, the career numbers speak for themselves. The top quarterback from the portal this cycle, in my opinion. He's going to put up some insane numbers for the Ducks.
All right, let's go to your number 2 quarterbacks, Texas's Quinn Ewers and Penn State's Drew Allard. Who do you like the best in this matchup?
Yeah, the problem with Drew Allard is former 5-star, had 25 touchdown passes last season, but the big plays in the passing game were not there for Penn State. And then in the portal, they lose Keandre Lambert-Smith, their top wide receiver. So I'm going Quinn Ewers here. I think that he's going to have a great year for Texas. Texas and Georgia are sort of my preseason favorites in the SEC. Obviously, he's got a 5-star Arch Manning behind him. Arch had a 300-yard spring game, so Quinn knows that the leash is going to be short if he has a bad September. But, you know, Quinn's another guy, just like Carson Beck, who I think can be a top 5 pick, maybe the first or second quarterback off the board next spring. And Texas lost a couple wideouts and their tight end, Jadavion Sanders, to the NFL draft. But Steve Sarkisian went in the portal. Those boosters spent money, and they got some targets. So this Texas offense with Quinn Ewers going to be very good this fall.
It sounds like a big part of your reasoning between picking these quarterbacks is situation, as it should be. I mean, it's all about who's going to put up the most numbers. But we like just continually pushing you and challenging you here. So I'm going to ask, if they switched offenses, would your answer change?
I think it probably would.
Okay.
Drew
so that's how much you like
talent.
This Texas offense. Yeah.
Right. And the portal additions were great for Texas. This is the second straight year that Stark's done a great job. He got Isaiah Bond from Alabama, top wide receiver there. So Penn State has to get better in the passing game, and I think grabbing Kansas's OC, who had a great year last fall, that's going to help this James Franklin team a lot.
All right, your number 3 quarterbacks, you've got Jackson Dart from Ole Miss and Will Howard from Ohio State. Who are you taking between these two?
This was very tough here, and I'm going back to the well. Both these guys have great talent around them. Both these schools, Ole Miss and Ohio State, did a fantastic job in the portal. Lane Kiffin has a number 1 portal class. He added Juice Wells to throw around with Trey Harris and Jordan Watkins. Ole Miss, I think, has the best wide receiver class in the SEC. But Ohio State also has Quinshon Judkins, who they stole from Ole Miss. So Jackson Dart, multi-year starter. And I think he's a little bit better quarterback right now based on what I've seen on film. Perfect fit for this Lane Kiffin offense. I've got Ole Miss as a playoff team this fall. Obviously, Ohio State's my preseason number 1. So, I mean, I love Will Howard too. But the quarterback room at Ohio State is deeper. I think we're going to see other guys outside of Will Howard actually play this season because of how deep it is. So I would go Jackson Dart right now in May, just by a hair. But these two guys are definitely elite quarterbacks.
All right, for those keeping score at home, we have SEC 2, Big Ten 1. Your number 4 quarterbacks, Jalen Milroe out of Alabama and USC's Miller Moss. Who are you picking here?
Yeah, two guys that played pretty well when they had opportunities last year. We saw Jalen get benched in September at the USF game that Bama somehow won there in the fourth quarter, and then the final 10 starts. I mean, he was a Heisman candidate. Now he has a great quarterbacks coach in Kalen DeBoer taking over at Alabama. Really good fit for that offense. I think we're going to see Bama let Jalen Milroe run a little bit more this season. He's a guy that, if he stays healthy, he could be a 1,000-yard rusher in this offense. They gotta tweak it a bit because he's not really a pocket passer, but I think he's a very good quarterback, and he's going to make a lot of plays with his legs. And then Miller Moss, sort of the mystery candidate, right? He was the backup for Caleb Williams last season at USC, had a very good bowl game. I think he had 4 or 5 touchdown passes in that win over Louisville. And, I mean, Lincoln Riley has said throughout the spring that he had a great 15 practices, looked pretty good in the spring game, too, against that new-look other side of the football for USC. So Jalen Milroe has a slight edge here, so that's 3-1 SEC. I'm going with the true dual threat.
I like it. What, Miller Moss, 6 touchdowns in that bowl game?
Is that what it was? Wow.
That's too shabby. Not too shabby. I know. Definitely a lot of excitement, and then you pair him with the quarterback whisper in Lincoln Riley. But yeah, he's a massive question mark, as are most of these Big Ten quarterbacks. I don't know if you've noticed, but in the top 5, every Big Ten quarterback is a new starter. And in the top 5 for the SEC, it's a returning starter. So I do think that might give the SEC a little bit of an edge there. I already kind of previewed the next one with number 5. It's Missouri's Brady Cook out of the SEC versus Washington's Will Rogers. Who are you taking in this head-to-head matchup?
What's funny about this, Emily, is Will Rogers is a former 3-year starter at Mississippi State. And last season, right. And last season, his development got stunted a little bit because they changed from Mike Leach's air raid to that pro-style weird offense that did not fit Will Rogers. Now he's back at Washington. He was a take for Jed Fish, and now Brennan's the coach over there. So I think it's a very good fit. And Brady Cook at Missouri, 2 years ago when he won that competition during the spring, he was actually booed in early September because he didn't play well. And last season, as a junior, was a breakout candidate. Led Missouri to 11 wins. Missouri's a top 10 team right now. We're talking about weapons, right? Luther Burden, best returning wide receiver, I think, in college football, not just SEC. So he's a guy probably 1,000-yard season. If Brady Cook and Luther Burden have the 1-2 punch we're expecting, then Missouri's going to be in the top 10 throughout the year because even by SEC standards, that's a schedule that's very favorable for them. So I like Brady Cook in this matchup, but Will Rogers, he's a guy who's one of the SEC's all-time leading passers who should have a really good year out in that spread at Washington.
All right. SEC 4, Big Ten 1. But Big Ten was the number 1 quarterback, so that's got to pull some extra weight. Brad, thank you so much for ranking them and then ranking them again. We appreciate all of that. If you have any issues, viewers out there, with the way that he has ranked his quarterbacks, you should go check out his piece on 247sports.com. Way more context there. Also, Brad has really just been churning out the content lately, so you need to be frequently visiting the site for all the best off-season content to get you ready to go for the season coming up soon.